Let's talk to Sharron now, Olympic swimmer and, of course, author of Unfair Play, the battle for women's sport. Sharron, it's so nice to see you. We've missed you so much during the Olympics because obviously you were contracted to the...
Look, I have my flag. This went all the way to Paris with me. It's come all the way back again. It sits in my little space when I do all my interviews. And of course, I've been in that Olympic bubble. So I've been home for about 2 days, just about got on top of the washing like you do.
Good for you. Right. How difficult was it for you, Sharron, as somebody who's done such an amazing job in the last few years of raising awareness of really important political issues, particularly around gender and sports, to just not be able to talk about those things for a couple of weeks, presumably? You must be like a coiled spring now.
Well, no, actually, the BBC were pretty good. I mean, they enabled me to have my own personal voice about it. I think it's always about trying to be respectful and always about trying to present, the facts, as I always have anyway. So, anyone that was following my Twitter will know that I did still speak about it. And I spoke to the BBC about it and they were, fine about it. I was entitled to that. So, yes, I mean, it was difficult, wasn't it? I hope that this will bring it to everyone's attention at long last that we have to do something properly and constructively to protect the female category. And we can't allow a passport, which anyone can apply for and change, to be, the actual qualification to be into the women's category. And it's something like boxing. I mean, it really was atrocious that we actually had biological males punching females when we know that they punch 162% harder. This was really a very, very serious accident waiting to happen. And those two, male boxers, they flew through, we're not losing a single point. So not only did they take a place from their own countries of a female athlete, they've obviously taken medals from female athletes that will never be able to get them back because the rules as they stood at the time.
Sharron, for people who are listening on the radio, we're showing at the moment a photograph of Khelif, the Algerian boxer, being held aloft by her male trainers team. But we've had lots of messages from people who are Muslims saying if she was regarded as a woman, they would not, out of respect, have held aloft a female athlete. So they pretty much, from what we were told, regard her as more male than female. Her own team.
Yes, I mean, yeah, exactly. And I know that there's been a lot of sparring. In the sparring, this person's been sparring with men, not with women, because they couldn't find women to spar against them because they were just too powerful. So, every single piece of evidence that was there. And the IOC initially were saying that they knew nothing about this. Well, this isn't true. I mean, the IBA sent them the results of those tests that were done in 22 and 23, 14 months before the Olympic Games. It was an absolute shambles what the IOC allowed to happen in boxing. And of course, that didn't happen in track and field and in swimming and in cycling because the rules were there to protect the female category. So it's very much now up to the IOC to understand that, they can't keep preaching about gender parity if anyone can identify into the women's category. That's ridiculous.
There's speculation, Sharron, that Seb Coe, Lord Coe, may stand as IOC president. Is your sense that Seb would represent women from your point of view, that he might be more on side with that perspective on this very controversial issue?
Yeah, I think Thomas Bach has been very weak. As an individual, I'm not very impressed. And he tried very hard to extend his term, which, thank goodness, wasn't allowed to happen. He's been there for 11 years, and they're allowed to be there for 12, and he wanted to go for another 4. And I think it's very much time for a change. We know that change is important in lots of things, just as it is in politics. So, yes, hopefully some fresh blood, hopefully someone that's not prepared to, that's prepared to stand up to the wokerati part of society at the moment that seems to think that we shouldn't have any rules and anyone should be able to do anything. And then the people that lose out are female athletes. But I do want to say that, Britain did really well and be on a positive side because there was some fantastic stories that came out of it. You're talking about 65 medals, which is amazing. Sadly, not as many golds as we had. We had 5 in the swimming pool. And, we had 3 silvers that if you added up the difference between gold and silver in those 3 races, wouldn't have even come to 1/10 of a second. So, and so that's how close the races are. And that's how important it is that we have a fair platform for female athletes.
Sharron, just one news story that we've seen today of one young boy, we believe, has lost his life in a canal, hot day. This happens every year, doesn't it? How good are we in this country at making sure that kids can swim and are water sensible?
Yeah, such a good point, Bev. No, we're not very good. I mean, in the early 80s, I worked with government to put swimming on the national curriculum, along with other people as well, to make sure that our kids were supposedly taught 25 metres and water safety by the time they leave primary school. That's not happening. It's not often checked. Many schools, often schools that in areas of deprivation, are not making sure that their children are being able to swim. I was talking to Becky about this whilst we were out there. I think it's very important that we also include in that water safety. Because these young lads in particular think they're invincible when they're around water. And the moment the sun comes out, it's extremely tempting. And they're often the ones, unfortunately, which get themselves into difficulty. We've also lost 300 pools since COVID.
Yeah.
So we have a massive problem with facilities as well, and we need to replace those. So there's two ways to be able to attack this. One is education, as it always is, and the other is to make sure that there are pools for kids to go and learn to swim. Here's a good little thing for you to know as well, because obviously you were talking about the athletes not being at the closing ceremony. They're not allowed to stay in the village. So actually they're allowed 2 days and then they have to leave.
Wow.
Oh, is that? But that wasn't always the way, though, Sharon, was it? In your day, you were allowed to stay.
It is now. So they're no longer allowed to stay to the end of the competition.
But what's the logic of that?
That was a COVID thing, wasn't it?
Good question. I mean, I love the fact that I was able to stay and go and support all the other athletes.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
It's a financial one. Obviously you have to pay for those positions in the village. Quite a few of them did opt to stay in town, because I saw Freya Anderson there, and I remember Freya saying to me, I'm going to stay, because I want to go to the closing ceremony. So they're allowed to go to the closing ceremony. They're just not allowed to be in the Olympic village.
I think that was the COVID Olympics. They kicked everyone out, didn't they, for infection control, and they just never bring it back again. Clever.
Sharon, lovely to talk to you as always.
Great to see you.